it's odd to me, Jimmy, as good as we believe Josh Heupel is with quarterbacks, right? That you had a questionable decision to go with Milton over Hooker, and now Milton's doing better in the preseason. So there's kind of a contradiction there of whether or not Josh Heupel is getting the best out of his quarterbacks or he's not. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's only one example where he didn't get the best. I thought Hendon Hooker was an outstanding quarterback. Now, looking back on it, I thought Heupel made a mistake naming Hooker the quarter. I'm sorry, naming Milton the quarterback over Hooker. Okay, Hooker proved to be a better quarterback. Hooker fit the system. In my opinion, Joe Milton didn't fit the system. He is more of, in my opinion, a pro-style quarterback. And so there, could he have a better pro career than a college career? It's possible. But I'm not going to get too excited about what he's doing in a preseason game in which they're playing vanilla defenses. I do think we all know he's got the arm talent, right? His problem was inaccuracy and making right decisions or quick decisions. And that'll catch up to you in the NFL also. And I think it will. But I'm not going to look at one sample size and him playing well in a Patriots preseason game and thinking, oh, my, this guy could start for New England. I would be shocked if he wins a starting job in New England.
Wow. Strong.
I mean,
but the helmet's still awesome. The mini helmet autographed by Joe Milton.
Yeah. It's still good. And he's still in the NFL. Yeah.
That's right. Go ahead.
It's actually very funny because I'm the one who posed this question, Jimmy, which is that I was posing is this an indictment of Josh Heupel that Joe Milton is looking like a very good NFL quarterback when he struggled so much last year at Tennessee? I want to know your thoughts on this. I think it's actually, is this a vindication of Heupel? And just hear me out on this. We all criticized Josh Heupel for picking Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker as the starter. I actually criticized it at the time, and I think you did too, Jimmy, before we even saw them play an actual game. But Josh Heupel believed in him. Jim Harbaugh believed in him. Jim Harbaugh put a lot of resources in Joe Milton before he realized he couldn't work with him. And now the Patriots are believing in him to a certain degree, or at least giving him a serious look. Does this prove that Josh Heupel deserves a bit of a break for falling in love with Milton because he's just that irresistible to any coach or GM that he goes to?
Yeah, Caleb, I could see where you would be enamored with the arm. Look, and the guy's pretty fast. We saw that. Was it Texas San Antonio where he ripped off like an 80-yard run first play of the game? I mean, he had speed. I saw some of that speed in practices. Now, the speed in the practices we saw in the media were non-contact, and typically it was nobody's going to get tackled. And a lot of times there was nobody defending the receivers when he was throwing passes. And that's not a good way to gauge whether a guy can play quarterback or not. I can see them falling in love with a lot of aspects of Milton's abilities. But to me, he didn't fit the system because he doesn't throw. He's not that accurate. He didn't throw well on the run for the most part. He was not a quick decision maker. He wasn't very good in the zone read. All of that's a part of this offense. All of that which Hooker could do. All of that which I think Nico can do, but not Milton. So, so Heupel wasn't going to change his system for Milton. But he did believe in his arm and he did believe in his athletic ability to the point where, and here's the thing too. I get starting Milton last year. I think you can make an argument at some point that maybe you should have gone to Nico at some point during the season. When that, you can debate about when that might have been, maybe after the Missouri game. But I could see, to your point, Caleb, I do think it's understandable why Heupel fell in love with him because other coaches have fallen in love with him too.
Jim, I posed the question or the statement yesterday that I think Nico's season will be as good or comparable to the 2022 season with Hendon Hooker because I believe Nico has more ability than Hendon Hooker. I realize that was a record-breaking season. Feel free to call me crazy if you want. Am I crazy for saying that's a possibility?
Dave, I think what we're going to see is Nico's going to be closer to the Hendon Hooker of 2021.
Okay.
And then in another year, he'll be like the Hooker of 2022. I don't know that as a redshirt freshman with that lack of experience, he's going to jump in there. See, for him to match what Hooker did, 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, 69% completion percentage, I think, 46 points a game, 525 yards a game. I don't see Tennessee or Nico doing that the first year. But could he do it in 2025? I think he could.
Caleb?
Jimmy, I'm taking the leap. I'm saying if Nico is as good as we're saying he is, and he's had a year in the system with Josh Heupel now, and I've told you I think he's created in a lab to run this offense. We had this question yesterday. Tell me if I'm crazy. I said yesterday, you'll think Nico Iamaleava is better than Hendon Hooker after the Oklahoma game at the end of September.
Okay, I will say this. A lot of times in a lab, it takes them 2 years to find that solution.
That's right.
Not one.
Yeah.
Not 4 games. It takes them 2 years.
That's right, Caleb. You don't just put something in a petri dish and figure out what you got.
No, this is one of those Food Network cooking shows. You got 30 minutes to put it together, and you put together that dish. Okay.
Dookie Chase down in New Orleans. It took him a while to put those recipes together.
Jimmy, I do want to ask you this question with what Heupel teaches, which I think is pretty basic in terms of reading a safety. And I think it was Caleb who had said that he only had to go to his second read. I don't know where you got that, Caleb, like 16 times or a rare amount of times. It makes things simple on the quarterback. At any point, could that be used against Josh Heupel? Hey, you're talking about a great developer of quarterbacks, but it's a great developer of quarterbacks in his system, perhaps not well-rounded to make the jump to the NFL.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair question. So I'll go back years ago. So do you remember when Texas Tech had quarterbacks that were putting up all kinds of crazy numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Cliff Kingsbury, Sonny Crumbly, Graham Harrell, and they didn't make it in the NFL. But then one of them came along named Patrick Mahomes. And he's arguably the best quarterback in the NFL, right?
Right.
And some people say it's not even arguable. So I do think the system at Texas Tech had a great deal to do with the numbers they put up. The system at Tennessee has a great deal to do with the numbers these quarterbacks are putting up, but it doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that you can't go from that system you could go from that system and still be a really good NFL quarterback. I think you can do that. And Hooker may end up being a good NFL quarterback. I don't know. He's having trouble staying healthy. And I think Nico could end up being a really good NFL quarterback too. So I think the system can make an average quarterback look good, but I do think that the really good quarterbacks could play in this system and play in an NFL system.
So, Jimmy, if you were a quarterback right now, if you're a 5-star quarterback coming out of college or coming out of high school, and you have a choice, you can go play for Josh Heupel, who's going to help you put up 45, 50 points a game, probably send you to New York if you're fully healthy for the Heisman ceremony. Or you can play for David Cutcliffe, who may not help you put up 45, 50 points a game, but he's going to develop you the way you want to be developed for the NFL. Who would you rather go play for?
That's a hard question. I'll say this. If I'm a pro-style quarterback, I would probably want to go to David Cutcliffe. If I have good running ability and I'm a willing runner, boy, why wouldn't I want to go to Tennessee and average 46 points a game in that system? So I think it depends on the abilities of that quarterback. But if I don't like to run it a half dozen times a game, if I don't like to get hit running it, if I don't want to run a zone read, I'm going to play for David Cutcliffe.
Jimmy, Tennessee has 15 5-star quarterbacks lined up that they're about to take. I'm exaggerating slightly, but I do want to ask you who might be the odd man out. Jimmy's appearance brought to you by Ray Varner Ford.
Limited 4x4 $67,950. 2017 Ford F-150 Raptor SVT $41,950. 2023 Ford Escape ST line $28,940. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
If you had to pick who will be the odd man out, because you have McIntyre, Merklinger. We know Nico's not going to be the odd man out, but then you have Merklinger, you have McIntyre, and you have Faison Brandon. You had to predict right now who will be the odd man out.
I would go Merklinger because Nico's going to be your starter for the next 2 years, right?
Right.
And then McIntyre comes in. And if McIntyre's as good, or he may be as good or better than Merklinger, then what's he going to do? Now, do y'all think Nico's going to be here 3 years? Because I don't. I think he'll be here 2 years. Okay. And so then I think McIntyre's really good. So I think that it'll end up being Merklinger as the odd man out because I think McIntyre will be as good or better. And I think Tennessee will go in that direction, which will mean Merklinger will transfer to Kentucky, right?
Probably.
Isn't that where quarterbacks transfer to, Kentucky?
Yeah, but then he'll be drafted by the Titans to replace Caleb's
You guys
favorite
really don't have to do this to me, okay? How many times will the Titans not listen to me? Excuse me, I'm just going to say it. I called Jake Locker being a bust. I called Will Levis being – I'm calling Will Levis being a bust. And I called Marcus Mariota being a bust.
I think great days are ahead with Will Levis. Jimmy, last thing on Tennessee, the University of Tennessee. If they started the game tomorrow, would it be Merklinger or Gaston Moore that would run out there?
Say that again. If they started the game tomorrow,
without Nico,
and they needed the backup. So,
okay.
Let's talk about backups. Gaston Moore. I agree. Thank you.
I think it'd be Gaston Moore. He's actually looked good in the spring games and in the other scrimmages they've had. He's been in the system for 5 years, so I think that's the direction that they would go. Yeah, if Gaston Moore started this entire season, game one on, I think they could go 6-6. I don't know if they could do that with Merklinger, but I think Moore would be good enough to get you to a bowl game.
See, okay, Caleb, I want your take. Think about this for a second. I think they could still win 8 games.
With Gaston Moore?
Yes. That may be crazy, and I haven't really inspected the schedule like I did with Nico. Caleb, would you go 6, 7, 8, even 9?
I'd be conservative and go 6 again. I'm a little scared to say they could do 8.
I might settle at 7.
Yeah, I could go 6 or 7. 8 does seem like a bit of a stretch for me, but I mean, there are 4 games I don't think they would win: NC State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, and then there are a couple of others that would be an issue. I would think, I think 6 or 7 would be my win total for Gaston Moore.
Well, you got to watch out for that. You know, Kent State's got a head coach who says he never wanted to be a play caller and study the field from the press box. So he's a real smart guy, and that's who Tennessee plays this year. And, he could give Gaston more trouble. I'm sorry.
The best thing about that game is they're playing it at 7:45.
Yes.
You kidding me?
I'd rather it be 7:45 in the morning.
Yeah, that'd be okay with that. I mean, how many people you think will be there in the fourth quarter of that game? Or in the second half?
Not many.